you know.
Yeah, I don't.
You know.
You know what? It was an honor, a pleasure.
Oh.
I mean, honestly, you're the man. I feel, you know what? As long as you're around, we'll be okay in some way or another. So.
All right. Well, listen. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Good luck, Cambridge, with this.
Okay, this stands for Electric Music Family. And that's exactly what it is, Electric Music Family. That's exactly what the community at EMF has become.
Compañera de trabajo que me enteré que a mi espalda se expresaba de mí como mona, la mona. ¿Sabes qué es lo más triste? Que ella era una latina.
Afro-Latina, elaborate. Are you African, or is that just because you have an afro?
You see that brainwashed mentality that I'm talking about? Hello? You're only a couple of shades lighter than me, like by this much.
At the end of the day, in the music industry, they're looking for cookie-cutter poster child.
So where are the women that look like myself?
The standard of beauty for them is blonde hair and blue eyes.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Kayla. Nice to meet you. My name's Allison.
Hello, Allison.
So today I have you here. We're gonna paint a little bit. Do have questions prepared, but it can go anywhere. So I've seen a lot of the paintings you've done about the neighborhoods and like gentrification and stuff. And could you tell me how that idea even came to be?
I lived in DC, aka Chocolate City, many moons ago, and I lived there for 5 years, and just during that 5 years of living there, literally that city has just transformed, and a lot of this, establishments and landmarks that made that city's culture just so rich, they were diminishing slowly due to condos being built. I told myself, I don't know how I would be able to, tell my kids one day, or just tell people how it was, where I lived, besides documenting it myself. So I decided to do my research on a lot of like the Black-owned establishments or just establishments that were prominent in, lower to middle class communities of color. And I decided to just show them from my own focal point, or like from my own viewpoint.
Do you feel like the art industry isn't making space for artists of color?
I feel like the whole art industry in itself, I feel like a lot more artists of color are being recognized, not just as artists of color, but as artists, which I feel like is important. It's more so that way now than it was before. I do think that a lot more artists of color are not given enough opportunity to be able to show their work or just showcase, who they are and what they represent as an artist.
You're not doing art full time, right?
I'm not. I work a full-time job. I work retail as well.
Do you feel like the amount of work that you get done, like the amount of pieces that you make, are affected by having to split your time?
That's my biggest difficulty right now, just being able to balance my work life and artist life.
Was it hard for you starting out to like figure out how to get your work out there in like shows and different things like that?
When I first started out, actually showing to a large body of people when I was in college, they would have me live paint, and it was really fun. It was cool, but I didn't like the pressure too much on like painting on demand and everyone watching. It was cool for the first like gig or two, but then it started getting to a point where I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't do this. And then when I started saying, oh, let me do my own stuff, it took a while. It takes confidence, it takes having the right resources, money.
Was there like pressure on other ends to like get you to not
do art? Oh, of course. Everyone wanted me to be a teacher. But being an artist really takes a lot of risk because you don't really see an income.
So we've talked about you, we've talked about the art industry. We've got a little bit of painting in. So my last question, my final question for you is, there might be young artists watching this video right now, and if they are watching, what would be a piece of advice for them that you could give?
Just create as organically as you can and as naturally as possible, because you're putting yourself, your truest self, into your work, and that's gonna set you apart from everyone.
I don't know how far you've gotten with your piece, but we can show each other. Yes.
Ooh, this is beautiful. Oh my god.
Reminds me of yours.
I like it. Thanks. A little bit of pop, a little bit of new.
Welcome to Happiness in the City. This is Barbara, and today I wanted to focus our attention on a very important set of concepts, and that is nourishment, nurture, and nutrition. Nourishment and nutrition are related, but sometimes people use the word nutrition only in the context of science, scientific meaning of content and variety of foods and drinks. But we need to think about those concepts in the context of our city lives, because a lot of politics became focused on money, financial things. But that is only one way to measure the well-being of society, because the the measurements that define success only through financial means may miss the general state of happiness and health of the whole nation, cities within the nation. Traditionally, when you read the Bible or when you read great books, you start seeing the primary identifier of a king, of a leader, was to have heart that can embrace, that has capacity to embrace everybody within the realm. And that meant that heart defines life. So the leaders had the measure of life for their realm. And there's even saying in the Bible to help the king not to have his heart go in the wrong directions. And that was one of the foundations of well-being of society, is that measure of life, health and life. And health had many other sources, not just medical profession, but also grace from God, natural ways in which the body is formed. But it was always essential to have the nourishment for life. That was the primary way to define leadership. And then money was only one way of making it possible. But money was not the measure. The measure was the heart of the leader and the well-being of the nation or tribe or realm. There are different ways to describe it. And I'm coming back to that ancient wisdom because we need directions in leadership that would help us create nation that has hope, that has health, sense of well-being, joy and happiness. Because what's the point of having great achievement in financial matters, and then there are millions of people living in despair, depression, not able to have any hope. So we have to look at the nation, at the country, in a more compassionate way. And that way is grounded in the ancient teachings and in the ancient wisdom of our heritage. Not only of our heritage. When I studied world history and world religions, I realized that all nations have legacies around that matter of well-being. So this is something that is universally recognized throughout the whole world. And many countries refer to standards of universal law to define fates and define directions. I stand on divine law, but I understand that universal law is also a type of law ordering things. And we have natural law and civil law, and civil laws should not be created to ignore the other three kinds of laws. Because if civil laws only focus on financial measures and ignore lack of hope in the nation, they may end up with no people. So what's the point of having success in money and then no life? So we have to come to that serious attention paid to matters of nurture, nourishment, nutrition in the context of authority. And authority is much more than the government. Authority is also the words we live by, and words that direct us, that educate us. And I think that in a lot of educational establishments, that concept of well-being, happiness, joy is ignored. And I sometimes ask myself the question why, because it wasn't like this at the beginning of the founding of America, because America was created originally on ideas from England, and England has very powerful understanding of it because of the fact that for more than 1,000 years it has been under divine right. So it has direction from God that faith and life are more important than other kinds of measures. And money is very important to treasure the way we organize life. But what I'm saying is it shouldn't be the primary way in which we create political vision for a nation, for countries, for the world. And the challenge is how to restore the concept of nurture, nourishment, nutrition back to political discourse in a situation when almost, not all, but most of the offices are staffed by electoral politics, which is very divisive, very focused on raising money, spending money, and it almost became dissociated from the concept of happiness. Like, can you imagine if you went tomorrow to Congress and you started talking about happiness? They would probably just laugh at you. This concept is not used at all. I've been paying attention to this. The same in many other places, like Supreme Court. Can you imagine happiness, pursuit of happiness, a standard for justice? They would laugh at you, because today the way justice is used is a form of a sword. You do it and you're okay. If you don't do it, you're cut off. So we have to have clarity on the relationship between politics as the realm in which everything is resolved by will, and that involves the sword of obedience or disobedience, or we could have politics that is focused on nurture, nourishment, happiness, life, liberty. And I think that we have to have wisdom about this situation. There are situations in which it is okay to use justice as a sword, but not if it is the only way justice is defined and used, because then the sword can actually cut happiness from people. And I went through a situation in my life that something happened, false witness, and I ended up in the other side of America, which was despair, homelessness, starvation, just terrible pain and suffering of people. And I had not been aware of this. Somehow my first 15 years in America was so happy, so high level, and so well organized that I didn't even conceive the possibility that there is also this other America that is completely rejected from any recognition because it's not within the measurements of finance and money. So that was a big lesson for me, and I survived it. As you can see, I'm on television now, but I have deep compassion for those people who are perishing, not because of anything wrong they did, but because the nation doesn't have the space for them under standards other than just immediate finance. Because many of the people that I encountered while going through that desperate passage, they were very intelligent. There were people who were engineers, there were teachers. Something bad happened. They lost a job and they couldn't pay rent or mortgage. Spiral started happening, and many of them just didn't make it, because when you don't have money and you lose fundamental things for nourishment and nutrition, your life goes away. First thing is the health is gone, and then many people just die. Some people are lucky, like we are here in Cambridge, that there are social services that support all kinds of social groups, but it's not like this in every city, and it's not like this in the whole nation, like what is happening in San Francisco or in LA is simply heartbreaking. And I've been ever since that time praying to God for wisdom. One of the ways I survived this, I grew up in Roman Catholic Church, and Roman priests taught me the value of Eucharist. So every day I would go to churches, local churches, take communion and pray to God to feed me supernaturally, because I didn't have food. Sometimes I had a cup of coffee, sometimes someone would buy me a dinner, but by and large I was starving. And I survived. This happened for a few years, and then God gave me miraculous healing, from which I came out to a very well organized network of social services. So I know that it can help. When my despair was happening, I didn't know about the services. No one informed me. And I had to go through this hard way, through which many people in many cities go, not because they don't know, but because those services are not available. So we have to create vision of politics that has the heart for the nation, the heart for the people, love for the people, for God to supply that love, so love, heart for God too, and then to create vision that has the concept and dimension of nurture, nourishment, love. And it is possible to do it. We have great books, we have education, we just don't have the focus and the language to include the pursuit of happiness, nurture, nourishment, nutrition into the vision of politics, into the way money operates. I know many people have anxiety that if they do it, the financial system will collapse, but it won't collapse. I can assure you, I have new ideas for finances, and I'm the one who created the vision for supply side economics in late 70s, early 80s. So I understand about the need to come up with a new vision. Supply side economics was just a common term, but the idea was to create vision for money that would be not related to socialism or capitalism. I wanted to have some new way of thinking about money, and it became very successful. That was the main reason socialism and capitalism as ideologies collapsed, because no one wanted to pay attention to their teachings when the supply-side economics created a very elegant way of thinking about economics in terms of focusing on money. So I did this in good faith, taking for granted the thinking that it will always include the nurture, nourishment and nutrition and well-being a goal as part of the financial processes. But it didn't happen that way. Money got disconnected, and actually that's when I also was cut off, put on this way of despair. So I had to realize within my own economic thinking the error of focusing only on money. And now I have wisdom about those matters, and I'm encouraging you to help me to create that new vision that would connect money. I don't want to abandon supply-side economics, but I want to create a new vision of economics that would include nurture, nourishment, nutrition, heart in leadership, heart of the king, and love for all people that would create happiness, joy, and hope. Thank you